Good morning. Welcome to the Thursday stream. Today is Thursday, February 19th. How's it going? My name is Angela. I am a front-end developer and software engineer in St. Paul, Minnesota. And on this channel, we practice vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, just because that's personally what I really enjoy doing in my personal projects. And this whole channel is me just practicing and building out personal projects. That's literally all this is. I'm not doing like client work or contract work or any of my freelancing stuff here. Of course, in those scenarios, I use SAS. At my last job, we used Vue. I've done Angular a few times. I've definitely worked on projects with like Bootstrap and Tailwind and Foundation, but I've never technically built one from scratch. And yeah, I started this channel just because I wanted to practice and get better at my core foundational skills. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, the three things that the browser renders natively. Malik Robinson is here. Welcome. Malik is in his first web design internship. We're very proud of him. So he gives us little micro updates as they happen, and it's so adorable. I love it. I'm so happy. I'm still waiting to find out if there's an official philosophy, because where he is doing his internship, they use, this is what he said, vanilla CSS and Tailwind. And I'm curious, still waiting to find out what the official philosophy is on CSS. When do you use the vanilla CSS? When do you use the Tailwind? But he just started. He's an intern. Let's give him a chance to ease into it. Rahul is here. Rahul from Nepal is here. Welcome. Nepal's like 12 hours ahead of Minnesota. Let me see here. It's 10:42 a.m. So he stays up late to hang out with us, and we appreciate that. Department meeting is today. I will ask. That's so adorable. I love that. I've never been so excited for somebody to go to their department meeting. It's a new chapter, especially when you're looking for that first job and you're just applying, especially nowadays. My God. I got my first job as a front-end developer, really as a WordPress developer, in January 2014. And I've been doing this now for almost 13 years. But when I got my job, and I was living in San Diego, California at the time, it didn't even matter how much experience you had. You could throw a rock and get a job. If you could literally do anything, you could get a job. I feel so incredibly fortunate that I started learning front end at the time that I did. And they were terrible jobs, like terrible in that they weren't very well paying and they were extremely demanding. And I had, a series of bosses that were managing a-holes. But I will say I learned a lot in those first few jobs. And then I've also had a long career doing freelancing and contracting and consulting. And then my most recent job, I spent 7 years as the manager of front-end development for the University of St. Thomas here in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I had a great career there. Fantastic. I think I could have easily spent the rest of my career in that position, but I was getting a little bit bored with the work. I started this channel how many months did I start this channel? Maybe a good 4 or 5 months before I ended up quitting that job. And what this channel taught me is that I need to move into a role where I'm doing more educating and more teaching and explaining. And YouTube is perfect for that because you can build your own audience. You can bring people in. You can teach people what you think is important for them to know, you being me, right? So, and that's what I do here because I did work with a couple of junior developers. I can think of one in particular who didn't know the difference between a div and a span. Oof, that's a problem. When you're tens of thousands of dollars in debt to a boot camp and you can build React apps and use Tailwind, but you don't know the difference between a div and a span, that's a problem. I think you should know what those things are. I want you to have a solid understanding of positioning, position relative, position fixed, position absolute, position sticky. I don't think you need to know everything, but I would like you to have a basic understanding of some vanilla CSS if you are going to be a front-end developer. Here's the thing, and we haven't talked about this in a little while, so I'm going to bring it up again. Especially if you are a junior developer, or even if you're just a new developer starting in a new position, it's very common that you will be given the backlog tasks that are important enough to continue to be tasks, but they are not important enough that if you make a few mistakes, anybody's really going to notice. And they will often be legacy code. So I have had jobs as a new developer where on day one I started with a fresh build because it was an agency and they had a backlog of new projects. Most jobs you are going to start, they're going to give the junior devs and the new devs the backlog tasks, and it will often be legacy code, especially if you are in an agency environment. But I mean, honestly, I shouldn't even say that because I've done both. St. Thomas had tons of legacy projects that didn't have time or budget to be rebuilt with the newest, greatest front end stack. So that's not fair to say. My point is this: just because you are really good at React and Tailwind doesn't mean when you start that new job, you are going to be immediately working on React and Tailwind projects. It's very likely that they're going to start you out with backlog tasks and bug fixes, and a lot of that will be legacy code, vanilla CSS. I want you to have somewhat of an understanding when you crack open those vanilla CSS spaghetti CSS files, right? And of course, if you don't have a desire to do that, fair, totally fair. Not everybody has a desire to do that. I just want you to be a well-rounded individual that succeeds. That's all. I love education. I love teaching. I think it's really fun. So, Clash of Clans Legend is here. Hello. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Okay, here's the thing. Here's the situation. I was supposed to look for a new project yesterday. Do you think that I did that? I'm going to give you a second to respond. That coffee tastes good. No, I didn't. So we're going to go ahead and look together. Okay, come on. Let's just do this. We're going to go ahead and look together. This is my little collection. I'm sorry I can't make this bigger. So, but this is my collection of Photoshop files and mockups. And I think this is a good time to bring this up. I did have somebody ask me a couple weeks ago if I would be willing to build something that they had designed. And I was open to that at the time. And as that conversation progressed with this person, who, by the way, if you're watching, thank you for subscribing and reaching out. But through the series of conversations I had with this person, what I realized is that I can't build anything on this channel unless I designed it or I have a license for it. So all of these Photoshop mockups are a collection of mockups that I've gotten from mostly ThemeForest over the years. There might be a couple in here that aren't from ThemeForest, but mostly ThemeForest. And the license for ThemeForest says that I cannot redistribute the layered Photoshop files, but I can freely distribute the end product, and the end product in this case is a static HTML, CSS, and JavaScript template. I can also redistribute the design as a flattened, usually I just save it as like a PNG, right? So that is what I can redistribute. That's what the license says. And then for my own files, like the last two projects that we did were the Scenic and the Coffee Shop. Those were both my designs. I freely distributed those layered Photoshop files. I'm happy to do that. the other thing is this, I don't, so my point is that if I work on your design, I don't really know where that design came from. I don't know who it was originally built for. I don't know if it's your school assignment. I don't know if it's client work that you need help with. I don't know where it came from, and I don't know I need to know what the license is for it and who originally paid to have it done. So that's so I made the decision that I can't do designs from other people unless I purchase a license to do the design. So hopefully that makes sense to people. Yeah, and we're just going to keep working our way through this little collection that I have. And I love buying new templates and new designs. So if we work through all of these, we're just going to buy more and keep building them, because I freaking love what I'm doing on this channel. I love it. I've never felt more confident or sure of my own skills. It was exactly what I needed to start feeling like really good and excited about front-end development again. And so this is kind of the problem that I was having at my old job, having been there for 7 years. First of all, it's that you're not working on your stuff, you're doing somebody else's tasks, right? And I was really proud of the work that I did there, but it wasn't like my projects. And that I felt like a maintainer and not like a builder. And I wanted the experience of like starting and finishing more projects, and I'm getting that through this channel, especially now that I've doubled the amount of time that I'm streaming. I'm streaming 4 days a week instead of 2, and we're finishing things so incredibly fast. And it has helped me iterate through this process of how I like to start my projects. I learn really quickly. Even almost 13 years in, I learn really, really quickly what does and doesn't work. And I don't know, I just enjoy this so much, building these UIs. Okay, Angela, you're talking too much. So here's what I kind of want to do. I want to find something that has drop-down navigation like submenus, because we really don't do submenus, and I'm very, very comfortable with my own process for responsive, accessible navigation, but we haven't really hammered out that process for submenus, which I, to be fair to myself, I know how to do that, but I don't have like a solid process locked in for that. So that's kind of what I want to do. The last 2 projects we did were 4-page websites. So let's make sure that we pick a template that's got at least 4 different pages, because that's really fun. Building complete websites is really, really fun. And we've got the time to do it, baby. We got nothing but time. So let's choose one of these, like really, this is definitely an old from like probably 2014, 2015 template that I bought. Oh yeah, and it even says here, September 3rd, 2016. So something like this I think would be fun. They're very blog focused because I started my career as a WordPress developer. This does feel a little generic though. Let's keep going here. Delta, this is like the first thing that we ever really worked on. The first project that I did. And you can tell that they're a little dated. They're a little 2015, 2016. If you're a freelancer or a contractor and you struggle with design, buying templates like this is very helpful. I do kind of like this. It would be super easy to build drop-down navigation out of this. So this is like a blog, like an archive page. We could do pagination. I mean, honestly, it might be a good idea. Because I have also been talking about the fact that I don't think I'm doing enough with JavaScript and dynamic content. So this just occurred to me. we could build out like a 4 or 5 page site and with static, which is what I like to do, but build out the blog dynamic with like a JSON file. Yeah. So it's like so it's kind of like the best of both worlds. Oh, hello, Genius Lila. Genius Lila. Hello, Luthando here, all the way from South Africa. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're happy to have you. Hey, by the way, this is a good time to ask people, do me a favor, if you're new here, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I would appreciate it so much. We almost have 2,000 subscribers. We are very close to being monetized, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, I'm really proud of the little family that is forming here. And I would love to have you be a part of it. Also, if you are hanging out over on Instagram, follow me. Follow me on Instagram. I do what I like to call dev adjacent content, like lifestyle content. I like to cook. I like to, I don't know. I'm like such a Reels doom scroller. I love it, man. I freaking love it. Who needs a show when you can just scroll Reels till you fall asleep at night? It's amazing. And if you ever want to like reach out and chat with me, the DMs on Instagram are a pretty good place to do that. And I would really love to grow my audience over there. So if you're so inclined, why don't we follow me? I'll follow you. I'll follow you back. I will say I get followed by a lot of bot accounts. So I'm always like plus or minus 10 followers on any given day on Instagram, which I think is funny. So if you so when people follow me, I do check to see like who's following me, and it's usually pretty obvious if it's a bot account. So if you follow me and I don't follow you back, send me a DM and let me know that you saw me on YouTube, like, and I will happily follow you back. I just don't want to follow back a bot account. And sometimes, here's what I'm learning. Sometimes people don't have tons of posts or followers because they're just chill and they just are there to have a good time and not necessarily to grow an audience. The problem with that is sometimes it's hard to distinguish them from a bot account. That's my point. So if you want to follow me, I will follow you back. You just have to let me know who you are and where you saw me. That coffee's good. Okay. So let's, I'm kind of liking this. What do we think? And I like this idea too, where we could just have the dynamic part of the site. Oh yes, Rahul found me on LinkedIn. Yes, you can follow me on LinkedIn too. Here's the thing. Okay, can we talk about LinkedIn for a second? It's the platform. What did I hear it referred to? I heard it referred to as a corporate ghetto. Is that right? I don't remember if that was the word, but I think that the ghetto part for sure. It's a corporate ghetto. It makes me feel bad about myself, but it's also really important professionally to have a LinkedIn, and I fully acknowledge that. It's the only reason I haven't been able to pull the trigger on deleting my LinkedIn is because it is genuinely important, especially as a fully self-employed person at this point. It's important, but also, can we talk about it? We don't need to go into this. But I think it's worth mentioning. Is it just me, or is Reid Hoffman taking up a lot of space in the Epstein files? That's what I'm hearing anyways. He's a dick. I can't stand that guy. But I will acknowledge that LinkedIn is important. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, okay. We don't have to talk about that. But that's the scuttlebutt. Anyways, okay. Well, let's should we go ahead and do this? There's lots of views here. I like this. And then we'll make sure we definitely need a contact form. I feel like I don't love this stuff, the special skills with this is a very 2016 thing to me, where you have the animated circle that represents a percentage for like your skills tell me if that's like still a modern thing. Oh yeah, and here's a good representation. I think this would be good for doing submenus. Here's the thing with a submenu is I think after many years I've decided that in order to have a submenu, you have to have a button. You have to have a dedicated button. You could still do a hover to show the submenu, but you really do have to have some sort of dedicated button, whether it's like an arrow or a plus sign or something for mobile, obviously. But I think it's a good time to, it's good to show that on desktop too, to indicate something visually that there's a submenu. One, hold please. Creepy people like creepy people. Yes. That's a good way to put it. From where is this design? This is from Theme Forest. Hang on. I will pull it up. I will make sure that this is linked. I will make sure this is linked. Okay. One moment. Oh, interesting. So this is no longer available. This design is no longer available on Theme Forest. Kleenex Minimalist PSD template. I've got the regular license. Download not available. Item removed by either staff or the author. You may still download your license certificate and purchase code. So that's happened a couple of times. We've worked on something from my own collection of PSDs that is no longer available. So if we click on this, yeah, there's nothing there. So that's a bummer, but hey, at least we still have the actual design. Well, let's do this one because this is conducive to submenus, and we need to spend time on submenus. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, so I did work someplace once. It was really early in my career before I had really before I had a really solid understanding of building navigation with submenus. Let's open this. And I did work at this agency in San Diego where they absolutely insisted that the top level navigation be a link so that you click once for the link, but I have to think about this now. This wasn't an issue on desktop, it was for mobile. That you click once for the link, but that you tap twice to open the submenu. Like they wanted this top level thing to be a link and to open the submenu. And I didn't have enough experience at the time. I was really new in my career and I couldn't explain to them why that just wasn't possible. You have to choose one. And by the way, there's no wrong answer. You can have your top level menu items be menu items that link, and you can have them not link. Both can be true. You can hover to show your submenus, or you can ask people to click on something to show your submenus. And that's going to be a different experience on mobile, but you can't have them do both. And there is a jQuery plugin called Double Tap JS. Yeah, detect a double tap on iPad or iPhone screen using JavaScript. I think this is it. Double tap JS. And I know there's like this double click event. This is such a bad idea. This is a bad idea. I get it. There are people who have worked to solve this problem. I don't think you should do this. I think you should just do solid navigation where you are either if your top level navigation is going to be clickable and this top level navigation has a submenu, you need a button. They need to be separate things. So for this, you would either click home, or if there's a button here, you would click the button. And that's mostly for mobile because it's still okay to have a hover. Does that make sense? So I think that we should spend some time building out responsive, accessible navigation with submenus, and like let's really nail down that process. The accessibility piece is huge. Yeah, so let's do that because it's going to be a lot different on mobile and desktop because you don't hover on mobile, right? So let's for sure do this, this is the index. So we'll do this one. I'm just going to make a copy of the ones that we're going to do. Okay. And so what is this? This is I guess this is the home page. This would be our home page. So we've got a slider here. I'm not excited about doing another slider, but it's not the end of the world. We've got a slider here. Recent blog. We've got a slider here. We're not going to do all these sliders. I just think they're a pain in the ass. So I'm not excited about doing another slider. Yeah. Okay, but this will be our home page. Let's see what else we got here. So here's like a services page. Here's a portfolio page. I genuinely like this because I think a lot of people who watch my channel are working on their own portfolios. So let's do a portfolio. So this would be like a blog post. And Viraj is here. Yo, just got here. Well, you're right on time, my friend. Thank you for joining us. We are picking the next project. You're just in time. So this would be the single view of the portfolio. Here's another portfolio view with a sidebar, without a sidebar. Here's a home page. We already have a home page. We really just want, I like this as, I think this is also a home page. This is a home page, home page, home page. Okay, so this is header options. I feel like I kind of like this, so it's full width with this border. Here's a gallery. Here's a contact page. We're going to do a contact page. We need here's a blog. These are I call these archive pages. Here's like an actual blog single. This is another archive page. I kind of like this. Let's keep going here. There's also this as a blog. I do like this. I do kind of like this. Let's do this. This is going to be a big one. And then I think we just need like a regular blog page. I don't see anything that is just like a regular page. So we might have to, did I miss it? Usually a blog page is kind of boring. So I don't, oh, here, this is the single blog page. Oh, these are a pain in the ass to build. But yeah, I get it. Comments, an author box, sharing. We can do sharing, no problem. We just did that. And a sidebar. I don't want to build that page. We're gonna make our own blog page because this is too much for my brain. We're just gonna build our own blog page and we're gonna build a page, but we're gonna use these four templates. So let's go ahead and start a project. So what is this? Kleenex. Do we have to call our project after a brand of tissues? It's a weird name. What do we want to call it? Was bored, and again, I don't know what I'm doing here, but seems like a good time to pass. What Mac do you have? I have a 2024 MacBook Pro. Well, I think you're a developer, right? I think you told us in the last stream that you were a developer. So yeah, if you want to hang out and follow along, we're gonna start a new project. Do a little HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Okay. Well, I guess we can call this Kleenex. I might have to think about that name. And then let's add a folder. These will be our design files. There's some excitement out in the hallway. Okay, so let's go ahead. And we'll open these. I'm just going to open these with preview. I'm not going to open them in, nope, that didn't work. And 1 second here. There we go. So let's just start with our index.html, and we can just start writing a little HTML today. And full stack dev would show off my website hosted on Vercel, but then Vercel blocked deployments due to I ran into an infinite API call loop in one of my recent pushes. Oof. And there seems latency here between when I comment on something and when you read it. So I will just, react whenever it reaches you. Yes, there is a 20-second delay, but also Other people already know this, so if you're new, you may not realize that sometimes I just let the chat go in order to get a little focused work time in, and then I will take breaks and chat with the chat. So don't be offended if I don't respond right away. You are welcome to yap away as much as you want, and when I take a break, I will stop and we will chat, because I this is focused work time for me. So this is like me practicing and building stuff, and yeah, but I also don't want to hurt anybody's feelings and make people feel like I'm ignoring them. I just want to like do a little focused work time as well. So, and I do everything when I start a new build. I do all of the HTML first. So here's my process. I do all of the HTML first, and then I dig in with the CSS and the JavaScript. I'm very focused on the UI. So for me, JavaScript is really more about just the minimum amount of DOM manipulation that I need. I try to let CSS do all of the work. I love writing vanilla CSS, so you're not ever going to see me use Tailwind or Bootstrap or Foundation. There's nothing wrong with any of those things. This is just my preference for how I like to do things. I think anytime you start a multi-page project, you should do a complete home page first. Header, footer, everything in between. Home pages tend to have a lot of stuff, so it's a good place to define your layout and your color palette and just get everything kind of locked in. And then by the time you get your homepage done and you start working on your inner pages, it's like 50% of your site is practically all built, because your header and your footer are done. You have a ton of responsive styles done. You're good for mobile. You have a clear picture of your accessibility, all of that stuff. So that's my process. You're going to see me build a complete homepage from start to finish, footer, header to footer, and then we're going to start working on the inner pages. So, and what do you use JavaScript for? Get element by ID and stuff. It's been long since I used vanilla JS. I mean, I don't do a ton of get element by ID. I'm definitely a query selector or a query selector all type of gal. Rahul, I consider myself to be a kind of an intermediate JavaScript user. It's the thing that I am the most insecure about, and I am forcing myself to do more and more in the live streams because I just need the practice. Rahul, who is one of the mods, is quite good at JavaScript, and he is very helpful and points things out to me, and he's helping me get better. And in general, I find the chat to be incredibly encouraging. I've never had anybody get mad at me for writing JavaScript so slowly or inefficiently, but I also love JavaScript. I think the universe must be built on JavaScript. So yeah, stuff like that. It's like for each loops and lots of event listeners for buttons and things like that, especially in the navigation. We just did a whole thing in the last project where we used JavaScript to make social sharing buttons. That was super fun. We'll do that again. Yeah, so you'll get a good sense of where I'm at with my JavaScript, definitely from watching me do this type of a project. And Malik says, getting ready for a meeting. I will give an update on Saturday. Also, my damn cactus that has survived storms, hurricanes, and all other things is now dying. Sad times. She fought well. Good work as usual. I'm sorry to hear that. We'll say a little prayer for your cactus. So, okay. All right, let's get busy. And we don't even need the browser today. And let's close this. So let's see here. We might need to go grab some SVGs. So let's go grab, look how old this is, Google Plus. Google Plus doesn't even exist anymore. So let's go grab a Facebook. We should definitely do search. If we're going to do a dynamic blog, we could definitely do search. That would be good practice for me. So let's grab Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and GitHub. So I guess we do need the browser after all. Okay, but if I use TypeScript, am I compromising my all vanilla philosophy? I'm just asking. Let's see here. Facebook. The dog is named Heidi, and she is a Sheltie. She is a Shetland sheepdog. And she's my little baby. Facebook, Instagram, GitHub, LinkedIn. We'll do a search icon. We'll do menu. We'll do a close icon. Okay, what else do we need here? I don't think that I'm going to do a slider here. We'll grab a little email icon. I don't think that we need anything else. If we need more, we can go grab more at a later date. I'm not worried about fonts or normalize or anything like that for now. Yeah, a simple and clean WordPress theme. So this is very blog focused, but I'm not going to build a WordPress theme. Okay, I think that's it for now. Do we need like we might want to just let's just make a like one gray box that we can call for anything. So I'm just gonna open up Affinity Photo, and we'll make like one well-optimized gray PNG, and then at some point in this build, I will go out and do some image sourcing. So, and what languages or frameworks are you familiar with? So at my last job, we used Vue. So for 7 years and that was Vue 2. I started that job in 2018, and they had a brand new site. Everything was in Vue. Honestly, it was a little overkill. There were lots of things that we did with Vue that didn't need to be in Vue, but that was just how it was built, so we kind of went with it. When I left that job a year ago, we were rebuilding the site. I worked for a big university here in St. Paul, Minnesota. We were rebuilding the site for all the schools and colleges in the main university, and we were transitioning from Vue 2 to Vue 3. I've also built a handful of Angular apps. Well, I've from scratch built 2 Angular apps, full stack. And I've worked on a couple of Angular apps, and I really like Angular. If I was going to use anything these days, I might use Angular. It feels like a CMS to me when I work on Angular. I really actually do like it. I've never used React. I just haven't. Nobody's ever asked me to work on a project for React. I know that if I ever want to like get another tech job again, I'm going to have to learn it. And here's the thing, I don't want to get another tech job again. I will do everything in my power to not need to get another tech job again. So there's that. I've never worked on anything with Tailwind. I've never built anything from scratch using a CSS framework. I've been hired specifically for jobs because I didn't need frameworks. I could always write the vanilla CSS myself. I used Sass for over a decade. I don't use Sass as much anymore in my personal projects. And I've worked on many projects that had foundation and or foundation or bootstrap basically, but I've never built anything from scratch using either of those things, but I can work on a project with those things. And what else? I mean, I started my career as a WordPress developer, so I'm pretty comfortable with PHP. At my last job, we used a proprietary CMS that was built off of Velocity. Velocity is open source templating, sort of built based off of Java. And it was super easy. Not a lot of, I mean, they've got, the Apache project has good documentation for Velocity. And, you know, once I finally got my head around what object-oriented programming is, it wasn't too big of a deal. But I enjoyed working with Velocity. It's a pretty simple programming language. Yeah, I can, and because of WordPress, I mean, I know my way around a database. I enjoy doing like cloud server stuff. I like Express. I think Express is great. I don't do enough with Express. I should be if I was going to like break my own rule on this channel, I think I would I've talked about this before, wanting to do more with Express. Yeah. So there's that. Rahul says, if you want, you can use TypeScript, but you'll need some build setup to compile to JS. For the simple scripts, it's kind of overkill. I'll think about it. So why coming to HTML CSS after doing Vue and Angular? I feel like it's a step back. If you know Angular, Vue React will be cheese and butter for you. Well, now I am intrigued to know more about you. I hope my questions won't feel like interrogations. No, ask away. Honestly, the people here already know that if I don't want to answer a question, I will tell you that I'm not going to answer a question. I'm not shy. After 18 months, I'm pretty good with my boundaries. I will let you know what my boundaries are. So if you want to ask, you go right ahead, and I will let you know if I'm going to answer. But so far, you're not asking me anything that I am not comfortable asking. So this is, I think these are interesting comments. I get this question asked in so many different ways. This is the first time it's been asked in this way. So it's because at my last job, I was the manager of front-end development. I was responsible for hiring and mentoring a junior developer. My experience working with junior developers is that a couple, but one in particular, was that they spent tens of thousands of dollars on a boot camp to learn front-end development. They could build React apps, they could use Tailwind, but they didn't understand basic HTML and CSS. That's a problem. People, you got to know the difference between a div and a span. I'm not even kidding you. I had a junior developer once say to me, "Oh, I see all these spans, but I wondered what they were for." That is an actual comment that I heard come out of a junior developer's mouth. The other thing that I really don't like and that I started doing, and we did in our last stream, was deployment. Lots of front end now is one-click deployment, and people, in my experience, again, I guess I can't speak for all front-end developers, but in my experience, new front-end developers are really not being taught how to manage a server. They don't understand DNS settings and some very basic deployment. So every project on this channel, the last piece of the project is always going to be deployment. It's going to be logging into a server, understanding how to set up your SSH keys. It's going to be rsyncing, or even just using FileZilla, because these are static builds that we do, and getting them up to a server, understanding Apache, creating a virtual host, understanding SSL certificates. What is port 80? What is port 443? What is the difference between HTTP and HTTPS? If we're doing client work, lots of front-end developers do client work, and you're taking on and doing a new build for a client who's got www in front of their domain, you better redeploy that as www so they don't lose all their SEO value. SEO, accessibility, also very important. I'm not saying that you need to do a deep dive into SEO, but you need to understand it and why it's powerful and why a good, solid, semantic, accessible website, how that benefits SEO. Because people spend thousands of dollars on SEO, thousands of dollars on SEO. And if the site is shit and is not accessible and isn't have the correct semantic tags, I'm sorry, but no amount of SEO is going to help you if the site itself is not accessible and SEO friendly. So we cover all of that here. So what one person may see as a step backwards, in my opinion, is actually foundational to front-end development. It is vital to the core understanding of being a good front-end developer. And boot camps and courses and dev YouTube are not emphasizing those things enough, in my opinion. There's a lot you can do with a static website, but really what I'm trying to teach people is SEO, accessibility, and the three things that the browser renders natively: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You don't need a compiler. You don't need a package manager. You don't need Node. You don't need any build tools. All you need is index.html, style.css, script.js. You can build anything. Anything. You don't need those other things. Now, I'm not here to tell you that you don't have to know those other things in order to get a job. I get it. The universe probably runs off React at this point. But if you really want to have a good foundation, you do have to know vanilla. And I just want people who have a desire to do so. I want to help you learn those things. So hang out with me. I've got 13 years of experience doing this stuff. So I know what I'm talking about, and I am comfortable sitting here and telling you what I think is the best way to do things. And if you want to challenge me, let's do it. Let's have that conversation. But I think I'm right most of the time. So yeah, we do deployment. Listen, what is the point of being a front-end developer if you don't see your work on a domain? I'm just saying. Tell me more about your deployments. Is it S3 and things or virtual machines? Here's what we do. We spin up a LAMP stack on DigitalOcean: Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. Because that is the easiest, most basic stack for hosting a static website, which is what I build here. So, and I love a good LAMP stack. That's what I learned. That's how I learned Apache and Linux. And that's what I show people how to do here because it works so well. So, oh, and Chris is here. Chris, thank you. I would love to know that too, wondering about working with virtual machines. Yeah, I mean, I just do a LAMP stack. I don't really do virtual machines, but we could talk about that. So, okay, we need a gray box. We got to start writing some HTML, but also I love the questions. I love it. Okay, so let's just make a generic gray box. And we're going to put this in as our image placeholder. Hang on. Oh, there we go. Okay, perfect. I just need a gray box. That's all I care about. Let's make this a little darker. Which direction is darker? There we go. $14 kilobytes acceptable. That works. Projects. Images, and we'll just call this placeholder. Okay. And now we have our placeholder. Excellent. And oh, I didn't tell you about the boundaries. Well, I mean, I tell you what when I see a boundary, I tell you what it is. So I don't like have a list or anything like that. Yeah. So, I mean, we're all adults here. You all know how to behave yourselves, right? I mean, we're chill. Silence for 24 hours is here. Hello, welcome. This is a chill place where I want people to like relax and have fun, but also, you know, everybody can conduct themselves accordingly, right? You know what to do. All right, so let's get started. One moment. And Raj says, I love to play with boundaries, not to disrespect you, but I got some dark humor. Well, I got some dark humor too. So, I don't, I don't do a lot of the dark humor necessarily on the live stream. We'll see how it goes. If you're interested in chatting, you are welcome to reach out on Instagram. That I would say that my dark humor tends to live on Instagram, if I'm being honest. That's the spot where I let the dark humor come out. So, I mean, I want the streams to be like chill and relaxing and fun, but I mean, I do also treat this as like my work time and my practice time. That's literally why I started doing it. So, but yeah, if there's a boundary, I'll just I'll let you know. Malik and Rahul, the mods, they've been here for a while. They know that if I have a boundary, I will let people know. So, and it's all good. It's all good, right? So, okay. Kleenex is the title. You know, let's go grab our Open Graph meta tags from our last project. Scenic. I should put these in a gist. So let's put these in here. And we'll update these. So can you do lorem ipsum in a meta tag? Let's just grab. And then the URL is probably going, oh, you know what this is making me think of? I did not update the Open Graph tags for our scenic site, which we finished deploying on Tuesday. I completely forgot to do that. So for now, let's put in the link that we know would be the dev link. Let's not use example anymore. So I don't have a GitHub repository set up yet for this, but it would basically be this with a different endpoint. So let's do that. And I don't want to call this website Kleenex, but I don't have a better name for it right now. So this would be, and then it would be images placeholder.png. So I will need to do some image sourcing. Okay, well, we have our meta tags. That's all we need. It's a work in progress. And Silence 24 Hours says, it's been a while since I saw the live stream. What project are you working on today? We are starting a brand new project today. We just went through the archive of Photoshop files and we just picked something out. So this is a brand new project today. We have homepage, we have a blog archive page, a contact page, and a portfolio page. I think that this is going to end up being 5 or 6 pages. That is my prediction. And is this website for learning or a client project? This is all personal projects just for learning. Everything that I do will be everything that I do will be open source on GitHub. I haven't started the Git repository yet for this, but everything will be open source on GitHub. And yeah, free for anybody to use. I don't do any client work or in none of my contractor client work. I don't do any of that in the live stream because I want everything to be open source and freely available for people. So, okay, here we go. So we're going to do a header with a class of header. We'll do main with a class of main, and we'll do footer with a class of footer. We'll start building out this header. So we've got, basically we have 2 sections. So this could be a good candidate for grid. I like to use Flexbox in my headers. I don't know if we need to worry about that now. Everything is in a container. You can see here that there's basically a container. So we'll need a wrap. So let's do a div with a class of wrap. And then this will be on our home page. This will be the H1, which means on the inner pages, the H1, hello, on the inner pages, why isn't, there we go. The name of the page will be the H1, and this will switch to a div. So for now, this will be an H1 with the tagline. And then this, I always use this as a nav element, but then we also have a search icon. So I'm definitely open to building out search on this. So let's do an H1. We'll just call this the primary logo. And then we can do a paragraph. We'll give this a class of description. And then this would also need to be inside of a container. So we'll just say logo container. And then this could just be the socials. Nav, social, oh, here, let's do nav, social, navigation. This can be an unordered list. I will also give this a class of social nav. No. And then we have our 4 social icons, but then we also have a button. There's a little bit of space here. I generally don't give my li or my anchor element a class. And then we'll do a span with a class of screen reader only. That is really the right way to do that. So this is going to be Facebook. And then we'll add in our SVGs. And then SVGs are going to be ARIA hidden true because we don't want a screen reader to read that out. And then we've got, what do we have here? We'll do GitHub. ARIA hidden true. And then we've got Instagram. Also ARIA hidden true. And then LinkedIn. Ugh, LinkedIn. All right, there is our social navigation. Let's just close this. And then we've got search. So let's do a button with a class of, well, not a class of button, maybe like icon button. Icon button. And it's going to be type equals button. And this is for our search. Also ARIA hidden true. And then this would be, we would want an ARIA label. Search. And there's going to be a drawer that comes after it, right? So we would do div search drawer. We would probably want to make sure that we had ARIA controls the search drawer, which really we would need an ID for that. So this would be search drawer, because these are sibling elements and we want to make sure that when a screen reader comes along, it knows what it's controlling. And then we would probably want to do something like ARIA expanded, and it will be false by default on page load, right? Exactly like our navigation. This is exactly like how we do the navigation. It's just for the search. Yeah. And then inside of our search drawer, we would have a form with a class of form. We don't need an action right now because we're not building the functionality, we're just building the UI. So class of form, because we will style our form styles, although I tend to make sure my form styles for the search are almost always different than everything else. So let's just do search form, yeah. And then what do you need in a search form? You usually need an input and a button, right? So we'll do a label for search, and then we'll give this a class of screen reader only. And then we'll just say search, and then an input with the type of search, but also we need an ID of search for that label. Do we need a name? I don't know. Probably. Placeholder text, search the site. Well, really it's going to be search the blog. We're going to make the blog dynamic, so it's going to be search the blog. Should be ID. And then we could do a button with a type submit, even though any button inside of a form element will automatically submit unless you change this to button type button. That's how to not have that functionality work like that, but it's still a good best practice to make sure you have the type. And then we'll do a search. Well, actually, do we want it to be a button or an icon? Do we have to decide that now? I don't think so. And let's see here. Mola is saying, please go slower. Well, I'll try. Oh yes, and I think that you noticed that I accidentally had is instead of ID. So, okay. Markup always subject to change when we get to the CSS phase, but I feel like this is pretty comprehensive. So here's how I'm envisioning this, that we have a drawer that is fixed and hidden and slides in from the left or the right and covers the screen. It's the easiest way to do search, in my opinion. So that's what we're going to do with this. Oh, we also need to make sure that we have a button inside the drawer to close the drawer. So again, we're going to want to do, probably going to want to do something like class search button, and then search underscore button, and then search open. And then for our button, search button, close, search close. Yeah. It's going to really, whoops, that's going to help with styling. And then our button should also have an ARIA label. Of close search. So this would probably be open search. We don't need ARIA controls because this button is inside the element that's being controlled. And we don't need ARIA expanded because this is, again, it's inside the element that is either expanded, true, or false. So we really just need the ARIA label and the class, and then let's add our, we can use the same close outline, the same close SVG. And then we'll make sure this is ARIA hidden, true. So here's our button to open the search. Here's our search drawer. Here's our button to close the search, and then here's the form inside the drawer. The form has a label, an input, and a submit button. Yeah, I think that works. That's just the top part of the header. Okay, so what's next? That's literally just these three things. There's a lot going on. Okay, so navigation is next, and the navigation is going to be really similar. So here's our wrap, here's the form. And then on mobile, so what's going to happen then on mobile? When we collapse this, what do we want people to see inside that drawer? I mean, there's only so much room. So are we going to take this and move it underneath? We could definitely do that. And then there would be room for the logo, our little description. We would still have room for our social nav, our search, and then we would have to have a menu icon. Or on mobile, we can hide the description. We can hide the social icons because I think we have social icons also in the footer. So I personally would feel fine hiding. If we've got them twice on the page already, I would feel fine just hiding them on mobile and letting people see them in the footer. And then we would just have our logo, a search icon, and a menu icon, which we obviously don't see here because they didn't give us a mobile view. That's pretty common with these 10-plus-year-old mockups in my collection, that they very rarely have a mobile view. And that's actually just been really common in my career, that I'm almost always just given a view and I wing the rest of it. I've only had a very few specific instances where somebody gave me mockups and then also did a mobile view. And I'm talking about a website, not an app, obviously. And it was kind of up to me to figure it out. So we have to put a fair amount of thought into that while we're writing the HTML and visualize how that's going to work. Yeah, so I think what I want to do on mobile is just show the logo, which is really our site name, and then the search icon and the menu icon. And then we can hide this and we can hide these. That is what I'm going to do. So, and Mola says, why use ID and class? Is it not enough to only use one? So it's not. It's because where is it here? It's because for the ARIA controls, the search drawer needs to be an ID. Should we confirm that? Should we confirm that that's true? It's because of the ARIA controls. It needs to be an ID for accessibility. And Awesome says, yep, I say hide the socials in the mobile view. Yeah, I think that that's a good idea too. Should we ask ChatGPT? By the way, we love AI here. We are not afraid to use AI. We ask questions. I think ChatGPT is amazing if you're learning accessibility and search engine optimization and you have questions about structure and ARIA labels and things like that. It's an awesome resource. So let's ask. If I'm using ARIA controls in my markup, do I need an ID or can I use a class to connect them? I don't know a better way to ask that question. You need an ID. So that's why you need an ID. ARIA controls must reference the ID of a single element in the DOM. It does not work with classes. That's what I thought. Why? ARIA relationships are defined by ID reference, not selectors. Classes can match multiple elements. IDs are guaranteed to be unique, which is required for assistive tech to understand the relationship. If you tried this ARIA controls menu and menu as a class, screen readers won't resolve that relationship. This was such a good question, and I had never fully Googled this or asked this question before. So thank you for asking this question. Quick dev note, since I know how you build things, ChatGPT knows me well. Even if your JavaScript grabs elements by class, totally fine. Your ARIA wiring should still use an ID. The ID is for accessibility relationships, not styling or JavaScript selection. So JavaScript class, if you prefer, which I do, ARIA ID, clean separation of concerns. So I hope that that makes sense. And I wouldn't say never. It is very, very rare that I will use an ID for anything styling or CSS related. That's just not how I target my CSS selectors. If I use an ID, I don't even do that very often for JavaScript, but if I do, it is for JavaScript or it is for accessibility and creating that relationship. So, and Targio says, does it not good to increase social opacity or hide or use a pop-up to show? I think the question that you're asking, is it good to increase social opacity or hide it or use pop-up show? I think you're asking me a question about hiding and showing the social icons on mobile with some sort of pop-up. I think that's the question that you're asking me. And my first response to that is that on mobile, we don't hover, we tap. So somebody would have to tap something in order for a pop-up or some sort of opacity to reveal those things. And I just don't think that that's a good best practice when you're going from desktop to mobile. That works beautifully on desktop, right? Because you've got a mouse. But also it's not awesome, I don't think, for accessibility and for keyboard users. I think since we have social media icons in the header and in the footer, basically they're repeated twice on the page, I just don't think there's anything wrong with hiding them for mobile. They exist on the page. I don't think that there is the same emphasis on social media icons that there used to be. I don't know if that's even a true statement or if I just made that up. But since we see them twice on the page, I just don't think it matters. I'll give you this. You could definitely put your social media icons in the drawer. You could either do a little DOM manipulation and on if it's mobile, you could get you could just take it out and append it to your mobile drawer, right? You could do that. You could just repeat the social icons in the drawer for mobile. We've done that before. I don't love doing that, but it's not a big deal. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I like things to be a little cleaner. You either hide it or you show it and you come up with the reason why, and I don't think that there's a wrong answer to anything. I think you just make a decision and go with it. I've seen it done all of those ways, and I think it's whatever works for you and whatever you're comfortable with. Listen, I'm about almost 13 years now into my career, and sometimes people ask me why I do things, and it's just because it's how I've always done it and it's how I like to do it. I don't have a better answer sometimes than that, and that's totally fine. So you just got to roll with it, right? Okay, so let's make sure. So there's our search. Okay, so now we're going to do the navigation. Oh, we're in the wrong spot. That's the search drawer. So now we'll do, here's our navigation with the class of navigation. So we're going to iron out the desktop first. We'll do a UL with a class of main nav. And then we've got an LI with an anchor element. And what do we have here? Home, portfolio, blog, gallery. Are we going to have that many pages? Home, portfolio, blog. What do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Gallery. I don't know if we're really going to have this many pages. About services. Pages, contact. Okay, and then we know that we're going to have some submenus. So let's make sure that we have at least 2 submenus. I don't think the home needs a submenu, so let's put a submenu under portfolio and under blog. So we want to, do we do it inside the anchor element? No, we just do it inside the list item, I think. Yes. So we'll do another UL with a class of submenu. And then I'm just going to grab some links here. And then we'll do so here we have 2 submenus. Yeah, that makes sense. Now let's make sure that we have a button to open. So this is going to be a class of menu button and menu open. I need 2 classes. I need one for styling and one for JavaScript. So let's get our menu outline. Oops, hang on. And we'll make sure this is ARIA hidden true. And then we also need to make sure that we have an ARIA label, which is open menu, ARIA controls, because it's a sibling of the navigation, and this button on mobile is going to open this navigation element as a drawer. So ARIA controls, main menu, and then let's make sure that we have that ID so we can create that relationship. Main menu. And then ARIA expanded is going to be false because on page load on mobile, the drawer will not be expanded. You have to click the button to open the drawer, right? And then inside of our drawer, we will add another button. Oh, and we should make sure that this is type equals button. So button type equals button, and the classes will be menu button and menu close. And we need ARIA label close menu. Here's our close outline. our SVG. And this is ARIA hidden true. So the screen reader doesn't come along and read out this SVG. Every time I put in an SVG, I always say ARIA hidden true. Yeah, and then since this button is inside the element that's being controlled, we don't need ARIA controls and we don't need ARIA expanded. Because it's inside the thing being controlled, it is inside the thing being expanded. Yes. Yeah. That's it. That's it, folks. That's the header. What do we think? It's a lot. It's a lot. We can totally do it. We're up for it. Okay, let's get started in the main part. So we'll just go ahead and call this a hero. I really don't want to build a slider. I'm not up for it. So, and I don't know. I just feel like sliders are a waste of time. I don't know. That's just me. Okay, start. So this would be like H2s, right? So this would be like a section. We could just give it a class of hero. Start your work with a smile. Could be an H2, and then we have this button call to action, except that it's not really a button. It's an anchor element that is styled like a button. Because buttons are actions, anchor elements are navigation. They are links. So we'll say section, the class of hero, and it's a section element because we have a heading inside. If there was no heading, it would be a div. So we'll call this the hero heading. Start your work with a smile. All right, fine. Start your work with a smile. Whatever that means. I don't know. And then an anchor element, view details. And then we'll just give this a class of button. And you know, sites tend to have multiple button styles. My approach is this. Whatever the first button is on the page, that's the default button style. It's the style that gets the class of button, whether it's an actual button or an anchor element. If it looks like a button, it gets a class of button. That's how I style it. And then as we run into more buttons or things that look like buttons, we just style those accordingly. But I don't see any here. And that is excluding social icons or buttons to open or close things, right? Oh, you know, what we forgot to put in is we need to put in a button for our submenus. Yeah, we got to do that. But let's finish here with the hero, and then we're going to go back up to the navigation. I forgot about that. I spent a lot of time talking about that too. And then we also need our image. So we'll do a figure with a class of figure. And then we have an image, and the source is just going to be our gray box for now. And we'll give this placeholder text. And yeah, that's really all we need there, right? Oh, and we probably want to make sure that we have a wrapper around this. We'll do a div with a class of wrap, which means that we will be styling kind of like a global style wrapper. Easy peasy. Put those on one line. Okay. Okay, so here, if we're going to have a submenu, then we need a button that controls this. So on desktop, this doesn't need to be a big deal. Well, I mean, for For somebody who uses a mouse or a trackpad, this is a straightforward experience. But for somebody who uses a screen reader or uses the keyboard or on mobile, a button is how this thing gets opened, right? So on hover, you would hover over the, are you hovering over the list item or are you hovering on this? If you're hovering on the anchor element, this is a link. And that needs to be independent of no, I feel like hovering on the link can also trigger the submenu. And then maybe we could like do like an arrow that animates, right? But if you're on a screen reader, the anchor element is going to get keyboard focus first. And with CSS, we could still open the submenu. But also there's a button, and a button will also get focus. And maybe for keyboard users, they have to interact with the button to open the submenu. Well, I don't have to decide that now, but we will have to make that decision what the experience is. So for now, let's just put in a button. And this would be a button with a type of button. And then what do we want this to be? Like a caret? Or an arrow of some kind? Like, I mean, it doesn't matter what direction it is. A chevron. And this is going to be ARIA hidden true. And then our button is an ARIA label, open submenu, ARIA controls, submenu, and then ARIA expanded, false, which makes me think that if you were a keyboard user, the anchor element getting focus would not open the submenu because the experience should be that the whole point of the button is that you interact with the button to see the thing that the button controls. And if we're giving the keyboard user or the screen reader user all of this information about what the button controls, then we shouldn't expand the menu just because the anchor element gets focus. That's fine for a desktop user, a traditional desktop user who's using a mouse. That experience is fine. But if we open this menu and they didn't interact with this button and they continue to either tab through with their keyboard or the screen reader continues to progress through the page, we're now forcing them to go through the submenu when they did not interact with the button. That makes sense to me as a user experience. I'm glad that I thought about this morning. I was like, you know what we haven't done, and people have asked me to do this, is submenus, accessible submenus. So I'm glad that I thought of this morning. And honestly, everything that leads up until this point, having built out navigation now so many times where I understand the experience of the button controlling the item, this makes sense to me. So I might confirm this with ChatGPT to see what they say. But let's keep going. Let's keep going with this. So this would be This would need to have an ID of submenu. So does it need to be unique? ARIA controls, what is this? Portfolio. Maybe it's the portfolio submenu, because we just asked this question and it has to be a unique link. So then we could do this again. And then this would be the blog submenu. So this would be open portfolio submenu. This would be open the blog submenu. I mean, it makes sense to me. Yeah. Christian Coates is here. Welcome. How you doing? You're busy. I see you. I see you streaming. You stream a lot. I see you. And I feel like you're kind of killing it also. Okay. This makes sense to me. Subject to change, of course, once we get into the styling and the functionality. So let's keep going, shall we? Yeah, you know, hanging in there, right? Hanging in there. You've been doing a lot of React. You've been doing, I see your titles. You're doing a lot of React, which I think is very cool. I'm resistant to learning React. I don't know why I'm resisting so much. I just am. One moment. Okay, what's next? Then we have this funny little section here, kind of like a headline. So we'll just give this a div with the class. We'll just call it headline. Hello guys, we are Kleenex. We create beautiful and awesome WordPress theme. Hello guys, we are Kleenex. We create beautiful and awesome static websites. And beautiful. Let's put this inside paragraph tags because that is semantic. And then what's next? And then we have the latest portfolio. So I'm going to say that this latest portfolio is an H2. It's a heading. So we can go ahead and make this a section. And then these would be H3s. And I am not going to make this into a slider. Section, and I'm going to give this a class of section. I might end up adding, I kind of already know that I'm going to add, this is going to be a grid. And then let's do div with a class of wrap so we can contain that. And then these would be articles. So we'll say article with the class of article. And then we've got a figure with a class of figure. We've got these images. Just going to use our gray placeholder. This will be placeholder text. And then I'm going to say this will be an H3 and we'll call this a Oh, I forgot to put in the H2. Tertiary heading. Welcome to colorful Colorado. Hey, this would be a good name. Colorado. Should we just call it Colorado? Yes. Welcome to colorful Colorado. And then we've got a time element. So this would be time, the date time. I'm going to use today's date. Well, we'll use March 19th, 2026. 2026 03 19. March 19th, 2026. Whoops. And then let's make sure that we have I'm going to put our H2 here. Secondary heading, latest portfolio. Latest portfolio. And Christian says, and Tailwind. I was hesitant. Chris says, have you ventured into the React ecosystem or you haven't adopted frameworks? Personally, I love Svelte, but I code React. I'm learning React right now. All I know is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Tailwind, and some React at this point. I hear Vue is good. So yeah, if you're people, I talk about this occasionally. I've talked about it a little bit today. At my last job, we were all Vue. So for 7 years, I was on Vue 2, and we were just moving into Vue 3. We were doing a big redesign, and I was learning Vue 3 as I was leaving that job last year. So I really, really like Vue, and I also really like Angular. I've done a handful of things. I've personally built 2 full stack Angular apps, and I've worked on a couple of Angular apps, and I really like Angular. So Vue is good. PHP Laravel developers love that language. I don't know why though. Interesting, because I came from WordPress theme building. I'm not a lover of Laravel necessarily, but I really, really enjoy PHP. If you enjoy building static websites like I do, and you want to do just a little bit of templating to just sort of like take your static websites to the kind of like step it up a notch, you can still be a pretty, you can maintain, me. I feel like I can maintain my static, what's the word I'm looking for? Like I can stay true to my static beliefs and still use PHP to smooth out some of the templating issues that you obviously are missing out on in HTML. So I personally love PHP because it's so simple, in my opinion. So yes, it is, but not one to be opinionated. I haven't used it before, but I think its code structure is clean too, just like Svelte. Yeah, I mean, I haven't done Svelte before. I have not done anything with React. I tend to stay away from CSS frameworks. I've never built a site with a CSS framework before. I started learning CSS back in 2009, 2010. I got my first job as a developer in 2014. So I learned CSS before any of that other stuff ever existed. And I always really enjoyed writing my own CSS, figuring out how to, this was back in the float days. We did not have grid. We did not have Flexbox. We had to figure out everything with floats. And by the way, I was really good at it. I just really enjoy vanilla CSS. I've worked on projects with CSS libraries before, but I prefer to kind of roll my own. That's just me. So it's I'm just talking about my personal projects. I wouldn't suggest ever taking on like an enterprise level client and doing everything with vanilla CSS. At the very least, we need to use Sass. At the very least, you need to use Sass. Even if you are writing your own CSS, you have to be more organized than one giant vanilla CSS file for sure. So I hope that answers your question. Let's see here. Okay. So I think we could just copy these. And that's it for that section. Okay, and now we have like a newsletter section. And be notified of new issues. So I feel like this is also an H2. So since it's an H2, we can definitely use a section. So I'm just going to say section with a class of section. And then I'm going to put in newsletter as an additional class because I know I'm going to need that additional class to style this form, although it could be on the form element too. Yeah, okay, so H2 secondary heading. Yeah, no, we do need a class on the parent. Be notified of new issues. Be notified of new issues. And then we'll just do a paragraph with some lorem ipsum. And then let's do a form with a class of form. And we'll say, I don't want to have we'll say newsletter form. And then we need an input and we need a submit button, and then we need a label that is hidden with screen reader friendly CSS. So we'll say label screen reader only, and this will be for we'll just say call it newsletter. Okay, wait a second though. It's actually for email. So I actually think that we need two inputs. We need a name and an email address. So let's do name and name, and then we'll have an input with a type of text. The ID will be name. We'll probably need a name of name, right? If you're going to connect that to like MailChimp. And then we'll do placeholder, name, and then I think it should be required. And then I think Chrome is going to give me an error because they're going to want like an autocomplete, right? Autocomplete, what is it? Like given name. Yeah. And then we'll do label for email. Again, this will be screen reader text, screen reader only. Email address. And then this would be email. And then button with a type of submit. And then I think we're going to want I'm going to call this the newsletter button. Yeah, the newsletter button. And then here's our mail outline. And this will be ARIA hidden true. We also need this to be an ARIA. Whoops. We also need this to be an ARIA label of submit submit, right? Submit newsletter sign up. Sign up. Yeah. Yeah, right? And then there's other stuff that we will do. I'm going to make sure that I have my my MailChimp. I know this is probably the second or third stream now where I've said this. I will have my MailChimp process ironed out when we get to it. When we get to the styling part, I will make sure I have that process ironed out, because I like using MailChimp. It's free, but there are some nuances, and as long as you understand what the nuances are for MailChimp, it's very easy to connect. It's very, very easy to connect a newsletter sign up to MailChimp for free, and grow your email list. So there's that. I think I'm going to call it here for today. We have this much left to do in our markup on Saturday. So I feel very confident about us finishing this markup on Saturday and getting started with the CSS. And by getting started with the CSS, I mean that we need to come up with a color palette and check and make sure that decide what the color contrast and accessibility guidelines are, what our boundaries are for contrast and accessibility. We need to pick our fonts. We need to grab a copy of Normalize and just get our CSS set up. We're going to write out our global styles, because I've always got like global styles that I like to write out first. Yeah, we should by this weekend, we should have an excellent start on this homepage. We should be rolling right along on this homepage. So thank you, Rahul. I appreciate that. Everybody, thank you so much for coming to hang out with me today. Whoa, we had a really good crowd, actually. Super fun engagement in the chat. I love it. I saw a lot of new names in the chat today. I think that is so cool. If you're in the chat, that means that you subscribe to my channel, and I appreciate that so much. I'm very close to 2,000 subscribers, and yeah, I just love what I'm doing on this channel. I love vanilla. It doesn't bother me at all to get questions, because as the channel grows, I know more and more people are going to keep asking me, like, why are you doing vanilla? And I'm happy to answer that question as many times as it is asked, because I believe very strongly in it. And I think if you hang out here for, a week or a couple of weeks, it will be, I hope, obvious why I choose vanilla and the emphasis that I put on accessibility and semantic markup and just understanding the core vanilla CSS. So And Chris says, yes, indeed. I love the way you code. It's a beautiful, good job. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Do me a favor, if you have not yet liked the video, would you be so kind as to do so? It helps the algorithm, helps me push this out to more people who are interested in this type of content. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I'm here Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Yeah, we just hang out and we do front end. If you are over on Instagram, give me a follow. Let me know if you have any questions. The DMs on Instagram are a good place to get a hold of me. If you have questions or you want to chat about anything front end related, I would say that Instagram is the place where I'm a little more willing to kind of like loosen up and be a little more relaxed or explore the dark humor as it were. I try to keep things like fun and friendly and casual during the live streams, but also I do consider the live streams work time. So I am probably not going to explore my dark humor side as deeply during a live stream as I am willing to do on Instagram. I also am starting to just create more content on Instagram, and I don't know, there's just something about Instagram I really love lately. It's like I discovered it all over again, and I enjoy it over there. So it's a fun place, I think, to hang out. Anyways, everybody, have a great rest of your day wherever you are. Come back and hang out with me this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to finish this markup. We're going to start writing our CSS, and we are going to get busy building this site. Have an awesome day. Bye-bye.